Okay, well, we're here today with Jessica Broussard, an HR professional in the oil and gas industry here in Houston, Texas. And today Jessica's going to talk to us about resumes and how to make sure that we have a killer resume and leave a strong and positive lasting impression on our HR managers when we're applying for jobs. So Jessica, why don't you tell us a little bit about some of the things that HR professionals look for when they're sifting through the piles and piles of resumes?
One of the first things that are looked for is to make sure you reach or have experience in the required qualifications that are listed on the job description. Those are the things that make or break the position, so they want to make sure that you have the experience that they're looking for. So you have the years of experience, you have the system knowledge, if it's a program, that you have program knowledge and you're proficient in that knowledge. So you can actually, explain to them what you've done for that knowledge. So they're looking to make sure that you have the criteria that they've listed on the job offer.
Okay, so how important is it, so you're saying that it's important for an applicant to really put in those keyword phrases? Is that sort of what I'm getting that?
Yes, I would say the first thing you should do when you apply for a job is print out the job description and really read over the job description and see what it is that they are mentioning and what they have told you in the job description that the position is looking for, and also what are your required qualifications, and then highlight them or underline them and make sure that your resume reflects that you have that experience.
Okay. Now, when we were talking earlier, you kind of mentioned something about serial job applicants who apply for jobs over and over again.
Right.
And you can kind of, I guess, tell when you see a resume that's a serial applicant. Can you kind of talk a little bit about that?
Yes. When you apply for a job, be sure you're applying for a job that you're actually one of two things, both interested in and qualified for. If you just keep applying for jobs to maybe get your foot in the door, the recruiter is going to realize that that's what you're doing. So if you're applying for a job that has like 10 years experience and you're a new grad, obviously you just saw the title and was like, well, maybe I'll do this one. When you start doing that, they start taking you less seriously, and then when you might actually have applied for a job that you are interested in and you are qualified for, you might get looked over because you've applied for 5 other jobs that you weren't qualified for.
Okay. Now, you just now touched on something that I wanted to ask you, which was if someone is applying for a job and they don't have the number of years experience that the job is requesting, so say I find a job online that says I need 5 to 7 years of experience, but I only have 4.
Right.
Should I still apply for that job? Do I have good chances of getting it or getting called in for an interview? What is your take on that?
You should definitely still apply for a job, because a lot of times the experience that you have, a lot of people want to see that you have hands-on experience with the job. So if you can list in your resume or use your cover letter to explain how you would be a good qualified candidate for the position, even though you don't have the exact amount of years for it. And you can even kind of mention that, while you don't meet the year requirement that's listed, you have done, and give examples of what you've done. So they'll know, okay, she might not have the 5 years, but she's done everything in 4 years that we're looking for someone who did it in 5 years.
Okay, another question for you. Okay, so if you had to choose sections of a resume, so going down the list from education, experience, skill sets, awards, honors, extracurricular activities, what would you say for fresh college graduates coming out of school are the most important sections of a resume to have listed?
Well, you definitely want to include your education and what it is you graduated with. If you have a BA or a BS, let them know. And if you have a minor, or like I did communications, but it was public relations and journalism, if it's a specific, let them know it's, because communications is very broad.
Okay.
So let them know specifically what your degree is in. Also, I would say your skill set, because being a fresh college grad, you might not have like what they consider real work experience. Like an internship is not always considered real work experience.
Okay.
Working a summer job while you made money and have work experience is not exactly what they're looking for. So show that you have, your skill set. So if you are bilingual, let them know in what languages you're bilingual in. If you have proficient knowledge in Word, PowerPoint, and Excel, list that. And if you've ever done any programming, or if you've ever dabbled into any other programs that are used in the office, list those. And also list if you got any awards and recognitions, because that shows them, what kind of person you are. And then it also shows them what kind of activities and events that you've been a part of.
Okay, great. This is going really well. Okay. I wanted to ask you also about, let's see, listing experiences. So sometimes I think people have a tendency to list their experiences, but maybe they don't do a great job of really showcasing
Right.
the value that they brought to a company as a part of those experiences.
Okay.
How important is that?
It's important because your resume is kind of like your agent. So you are, or it's not really, well, okay, let me go with that. Your resume is like your agent, but it's a silent agent. So if you are a sports player, you have your agent out there saying, Krista hits, grand slams every time she's up to bat. She does all this great stuff. But so your resume is that person for you. So you need to, on your resume, list everything that sells you, because a lot of times that's the only thing you have. So if your resume doesn't make it past the recruiter, well, then it's not getting to the job owner and the HR manager. So you need to make sure everything you list is concise, it's listed grammatically correct, it's spelled correctly, and if you've answered the phones and filed papers, don't say, I answered the phone and I filed papers. You say you have great customer service experience, by answering customers' questions over the phone or face-to-face, or providing customer service skills by, and listed that way. So make it concise, because as a new college grad, your resume should only be a page long.
Okay, so let's clear that up now for everybody. How long should your resume be?
Your resume should be a page long.
Okay, 1 page. So
1 page and normal margins, not all spaced out and crazy. And I would say Word has some good templates for resumes, but sometimes they make them a little too bubbly, or they make them too spacious, or stuff's too bold and underlined and blocked letters.
Okay.
You need it to be simple. Top needs to have your name, your address, a good phone contact number, and an email address. And your email address needs to be a professional email address.
Okay, can we say that again?
Yes, it needs to be a professional email address. You have Yahoo, Google, everybody has free things. It could be your initials. It could be your name needs to be in there somewhere. So it could be like jessicab@gmail.com. It does not need to be cutie with the hot booty at something. We see those, and maybe if you're applying for a job where you're flipping a burger, that's okay. And then honestly, that's not okay anywhere. So it needs to be a professional email. I know when you graduate from college, sometimes you can get an alumni email from your school,
right.
Or like at St. Thomas, I still have my St. Thomas email, and I've been out for quite some time. So a professional, and then it needs to be run smoothly, bold and italicized, your job titles that you've had and your years and your work experience and stuff, but it doesn't need to be, it needs to be black and white. It needs to be on a nice quality paper. It does not need to be like a note you would write your friends or an invitation. It needs to be very professional, very sleek, but yet very inviting for when people read it.
Okay, great. You also mentioned to me earlier today that, of course, when you're posting a job that's open, an open position, that you've got a period of time that you're allowing resumes to come in, and you get
hundreds
of resumes, and you're filtering those down. So can you sort of talk about that process and what makes a resume stand out to you? What are the things you're looking for, and how important it is for someone to sell themselves in the midst of this large, pool of competition that they're up against?
Sure. So a job is usually posted for a 2-week or a month period, and once that posting closes, that's when the recruiter filters through the resumes. And since everything's online now, you can't provide a whole packet of information and make it look great. Now you have to do it in 2 things: a cover letter and a resume. So basically what you need to do, what I mentioned earlier, was print out the job description and really look over it. See what they're looking for, what it is that they're wanting and that they need in an applicant for this job. Because usually, I know in my company, a lot of time is spent on writing these job descriptions, and they need somebody who fits those to the T. Okay. And so basically you need to go through that job description. You need to highlight what you see is repetitive. If it's proficient in Excel, you need to be proficient in Excel. You need to, list that on your resume at the top or under your skill set. Proficient in Excel, if you've had certificates or if you've gone to training and you've had training, that needs to be listed. So truly understand what the job is looking for. And from there, make your resume reflect that you have the experience that they're looking for in the job. Your cover letter, I would say you should include a cover letter, because since this is your first attempt at getting a real job, as people will call it, your cover letter can sell you better. So your cover letter will let those people know, I've done this is what I graduated with, this is what I have experience in, and then your resume backs that up with where the company was, you did that information, and how long you were there. So, but it does take a while, between the time of the job posting to it closing, to people sending those resumes off to the business manager, to the job owners and business managers reviewing them, to you getting called in, can take months.
Okay, so it's not unrealistic for someone to be in that job search process once they've submitted a resume until they get an actual callback, for it to take months. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It takes months.
I think that's important to know, because sometimes we feel,
right, and it is very, because I remember when I was applying, it is very, upsetting to know that you applied for a job 2 months ago and you still haven't heard back, and it's still posted. But there is a posting period, and sometimes people don't take them down. Ours go off automatically, but sometimes you have to manually go on there and do that. And sometimes in the midst of all of it, especially if there are like 200 to 300 applicants, they start screening in advance. And if that posting is still up there, that means that in the screening that they've done previously, they have not found the person that they're looking for yet.
Okay. If you could think of the top three most important things that you could advise that you could give to our dorm room to boardroom readers or viewers for their resume, top three things, pieces of advice, tips, what would they be?
To take your time with writing it. Don't see a job, slap together a resume, and send it off. Mm-hmm. Literally take your time, because as I mentioned, that's what sells you. That's what you have to help you get the job. You're not able to, submit a recording or submit a packet of stuff that you have. Your resume is what you have. So truly take your time, write it, type it up, review it yourself, have somebody else review it, whether it be a friend or a family member, and tell them, no, just look at it and say, does this look okay? Because most people review it for, oh, she didn't spell that wrong, oh, that font's nice. Like, really review it for the content. And if you are the reviewer, ask people, well, what did you do in that role? Because that's what people are looking at. Well, okay, I see she interned with the Astros for a year, but what did she do while she was there? So if you say answer phones, that's not really telling me anything. So you just answered the phone. So to me, you're looking for more an administrative position. But if you were saying, you provided responses to tickets, callers, people calling for tickets, like truly list what you have actually done. So that was my first thing is take your time and truly write it and know that it is a very important document. 2 is list concisely but effectively list what you have done where you were, because most people who were in college, they either had an internship or had a summer job that has given them some work experience. So list concisely, but list what you did. So don't just say answered phones. Say provided customer service by providing both, responses to people on the phone and face to face about tickets or about cookies or wherever you worked at. Right. And then just to make sure it's professional. It looks professional, it sounds professional, it flows together. Your font is professional, your email address is professional, just making sure it looks professional, because unfortunately in this day and time, people go by the way things look, and sometimes you can upload your actual resume and they see the actual resume, and sometimes it gets thrown into the system. That kind of skews how things are going. And once you submit your resume, review it because once you upload it, sometimes it goes into the company's own format. Make sure it still looks right, and everything is still situated right, and it hasn't thrown all your bullet points off and your information off.
Okay, well, that's definitely important to know. Okay, what's the craziest thing you've ever seen someone do on a resume that you reviewed?
Some people's resumes are really short. And they'll just list a job and they won't say what they've done. Some people have had some really inappropriate email addresses.
Oh, really?
Like extremely inappropriate, with body parts listed.
Oh,
and
no.
Yeah. Some people have, I worked at a company before, people could actually walk in and apply. It was in colored ink on colored paper. This is not an invitation.
Oh, wow.
It needs to be on white paper and black ink, or really, really dark blue ink, but black is the best. But yeah, people don't take it seriously. So it needs to be truly drilled in that this is a professional document and it's an important document, and it's what you have to help you get that job that you want. So you can get more experience, so you can make a career.
Okay. Do you prefer to see a name centered on a resume, lefted, or right aligned?
I think it should be centered, and that's just my preference. I've seen them on the left, I've seen them on the right, I've seen them as headers. I think it should be centered though. I think it flows well if you have your name and your contact information centered, and then you have left align your like work experience or your education, and then you list your education in the middle, and then on the left you have your work experience, then you list your work experience in the middle, skills and activity, or activities and reward recognitions, then bolded on this side, regular font in the middle. So I think it should be centered. If you left it or right it, it's not, you can have like your name in the middle and then like your contact information like at the top right or something like that. You can, but I just find like when it's in the middle, it's all, flows well down the page.
Okay. It's interesting because I like it centered actually myself. When I'm looking at them and you're looking at a pile, it's easier than
Yeah.
Okay. What other questions I want to ask? I want to ask you about, let me not forget this question. This is not related to resumes. Sure. This is our standard going to boardroom question that we ask everybody. Sure. If you could choose, if you were given the option of $1 million or 365 days of vacation, which would you choose and why?
$1 million or 365 days of vacation. I would choose the $1 million because then I can have my 365 days of vacation. But I would choose $1 million because it's $1 million, first of all. And also, with that, I could do a lot of things. If you have 365 days of vacation, you don't have any money. You don't have any income coming in. So granted, you don't have to go to work, but what can you do if you don't have any income coming in? So I just have 365 days where I'm just sitting there. But $1 million, I could save some, I could invest some, I could take some trips. And then I could really enjoy my vacation when my vacation comes around at work. $7 million.
Well, that sounds very logical. Okay. Alrighty, so I just wanted to remember that to ask that question. Okay. The next question I'm going to ask you is about people who actually get called in for resumes, or from their resumes, for an interview. So I'm trying to think here.
Well, I can start.
Just talk about it. Yeah, okay.
First thing, usually, especially if you're applying to a big company, if your resume makes it through the screening process, the second thing is that you get, or the first thing that you get is a phone screen. So if you made it past the paper screen and I've sent your resume off to the job owner and they're like, oh yeah, Krista looks good, call her and see. If you make it through that process, when they call you, know your resume. Because they're going to ask you questions about your resume. So know your resume and know the job description. Because based on the things that you have listed on your resume, they're going to ask you questions that coincide with what's listed on the job description. So if you're pausing and and on and what and I don't remember, don't ever say you don't have an example. It might be a simple example. It could be a made up example, but always provide a response to the question. So if you know you've applied for a job and you are interested in that job and you feel this is a job for me, I'm gonna get this, know your resume and know that job description. So that when that person calls you and he or she is talking to you and they're asking you questions, yeah, you have it in front of you, but you are confident in your responses. Because a lot of times the way you respond to those people and the way you react to that phone interview can also make or break you. Mm-hmm. Because they're like, okay, well, she said she had this stuff, but when I asked her questions, she didn't have any responses for me, or she didn't have any examples. They always want to hear examples. Give me an example of a time when you had, this, that, or the other. How did you handle, what happened? How did you handle it? How could you have done it better? So be sure you know what's listed on there and you know what you've done in the past and you really know what's going on. Okay. Because they will ask you questions. It's like being interviewed before you're being interviewed. Okay. So they're not to be taken lightly, I guess is the best way to put it. Like that is like, a lot of times, especially in the big companies, that's your first step. Mm-hmm. You go through that phone screen, and then from that phone screen, that recruiter's like, okay, this person seems like they know what's going on. They gave me good examples. They were really confident in their responses. Let's take her to the next step.
Okay. Now that brings me to another point of being honest and truthful in your resume. So yes. It is, I think, for some people it is convenient or may seem appealing to sort of adjust the truth on your resume. Right. So can you kind of speak to that, the importance of, you know, being honest on your resume? Does HR fact check? You know, is it possible for someone to get caught in sort of a little bit of a...
Yes.
Uh-oh.
Do know that if you say you have a bachelor's...
Okay, start over.
Sorry,
Okay.
I know I did kind of. Do know that if you have a bachelor, if you say you have a bachelor's, they're going to check. They're going to verify. If you say you've worked somewhere, they're going to call and check your reference, well, your work history. If you say you're proficient in Excel, they're going to ask for examples. Or they might call you in and give you an Excel test. So if you have never even opened an Excel spreadsheet, don't say you're proficient in Excel. Because if you're proficient, that means you know how to open it, create it, make charts from it, do all this stuff. And they're going to want you to know that. Or you're going to get hired on and the person's going to be like, I need these 5 spreadsheets filtered, sorted, you know, what all these pivot charts and tables and all this stuff. And you're just going to be looking at them, you know, wide-eyed, and they're going to be like, you said you knew how to do this. So don't start off your job application process with lies, because it's just going to snowball into something. If you're not proficient in something, or you don't have a lot of experience in it, you know, just say you have like fair experience with it, but willing to learn. Let the people, or, you know, write on your resume or your cover letter that you're willing to learn more, that you've had a little bit of experience with, say, like PowerPoint, but you're willing to learn more. Or if you see that you applied for a job that closed on, you know, that's posted till the end of next month, in that time, Google or YouTube how to create a PowerPoint, or go to the library or go to the bookstore and get a book on how to do stuff. But always list what you know, because they're going to ask you, not only are they going to ask you about it, they're going to want examples of it, and they might even test you over it.
Okay. Well, I think that's great information. Yeah, I've never lied or adjusted the truth.
Right. But
on a resume. But yeah, they do that. So I want to make sure that we cleared that up. Let's see. I'm trying to think. We've covered a lot.
Well, you asked about if you get called in, so I started with the phone screen. So do you want me to go more into like an interview?
No, because I want you to say that, because I'm going to interview you on interviews
Okay.
in a couple of weeks. Okay. I'm trying to think what other resume stuff did I have? Because those are the big things. The length of the resume. We covered the name and email addresses, which is big. We covered listing, which were the important sections to list. We're going to talk about volunteer work. So how can, if I don't have a lot of work experience, for example, maybe I have some volunteer experience, is that beneficial for me to list that volunteer experience?
Yes.
Okay.
Because people want to know that you're not only an employee, but you have, I guess you could say you have like a big heart. Like you, not only are you concerned about the well-being for yourself, but you're concerned about the well-being for others. Like the company I work at, we have what's called a humankind campaign. And during that time, we basically strive as a company to reach so many volunteer hours by volunteering at the food bank, by volunteering with Habitat for Humanity, by planting trees, by, you know, and if you have a organization that you volunteer at, or you want to, you know, have more people become aware about the organization, you're able to do that. So yeah, it's really important that people see, it shows you as a well-rounded person. It shows that, you know, you're willing to make the grades and take the classes and get the experience, but also you know that it's important to give back to the community. And so, you know, like we went to the food bank, and you know, you think, oh, people just put food in the boxes and they just hand it out. No, there's this whole process. You have to inspect the food. You know, you have to shake it all out. You know, you have to clean it off, because when stores donate it, it's just chunked in a basket, you know. So there's a lot that goes into that. And it also, you know, gives you a different perspective of things when you're able to take a step back and, you know, be a part of that. So yeah, definitely list your volunteer experience. If you had any extracurricular activities that you did with your school, or you got awards, or if you got any recognitions for anything you did, list everything that you have, I mean, well, everything that's pertinent, but that you have done that you feel is important to, you know, basically signify you as a person. So they want to see that you're an applicant also, but you also want to see that there's a person behind
Right.
that. Because what part of our information that we get told when we're processing offers is, think of this as a person, not just a piece of paper. So while you're wanting to list what you've done, that is in regards to the job description, you also want to show that, this is what else I do. This is where else I offer. Because a lot of companies are big about volunteer hours, or they have, campaigns. There's another oil and gas company that's right down the street from us that they have a whole day, where they let all their employees off and they get together and they go to Habitat for Humanity and they build houses. So they want to know that if something like that comes up, you're not going to be like, I'm not going to that.
Right.
They want to know that you're a well-rounded person. And you don't have to go to everything, like once you do get hired on, you get to choose what you want to do, but they do want to know that you will be active and involved and things like that.
Okay. Now I'm going to take a second to pause and make sure that we still have tape on this one before I start done. This is going great because of Jessica.
I'm glad. I feel very professional and
Yes.
informative.
Yes. Okay. So let's see. All right, we have 2 minutes, so I think I'm going to stop the tape there.